Gunger is basically the John Wick of his story, the most feared assassin in the world, but now he's living as a regular high school student. Don't be fooled. He still has all his deadly skills and easily takes down thugs like it's nothing. To understand how he got here, we need to look at his past. Known as Tuji, he was the strongest assassin alive, and on his final mission, he had to eliminate Chairman Akagi. With monster-like speed, he dodged bullets and wiped out everyone in his path. Akagi knew he was doomed and begged for mercy, but Tuji's best friend Hate, also an assassin, finished him off since their organization ordered Akagi's death. Afterward, Tuji noticed a photo of Akagi with his daughter on his phone, and that moment changed him. He no longer wanted to live as a killer. He retired and returned home to his girlfriend Mai, who was waiting to cook dinner for him, while Hate kept praising him as the #1 assassin. Though everyone feared his name, Hate believed that very fear was what made him so effective. Tuji feels a deep sadness as his best friend retires, longing for a normal life after years of grinding as an assassin. Meeting Marai, his girlfriend, sparked a desire for peace and warmth, a life with her and their dog John that he never thought possible. Though he's a ruthless killer, he's also a lover boy, even planning to propose to Marai. Returning home, dressed sharply and nervous like any ordinary man, he hopes for a fresh start, but the smell of blood shatters his dreams. He finds Marai lying in a pool of blood alongside John, and despair engulfs him. Sensing Hate behind him, he calls out, and his best friend praises him for always knowing who's near. Yet the organization refuses to let someone like him retire, especially when he resists aiding their goals. Hate rationalizes killing Marai as removing a problem, leaving Tuji defenseless, and by Odin's will, ends Tuji's life as he lies defeated, reflecting on the cruel truth. A man like him could never have a happy ending, and his loved one suffered for daring to dream too far. But amid his unconsciousness, murmuring voices emerge, offering a faint glimmer of hope, said. Those voices feel strange and distant until he slowly opens his eyes, only to realize he is no longer Tuji the assassin and no longer dying beside his loved ones. Panic grips him as he tries to move, his body unfamiliar and uncooperative. His vision blurs, and in a rush of fear, he stumbles toward the mirror. What he sees reflected back is utterly alien. Someone entirely different, a stranger occupying the place of the man he once was, leaving him frozen in shock and confusion. At this moment, the once feared, most ruthless assassin of his time is reduced to nothing more than a young boy. Kaido Fujiwara is informed that he has passed all his tests and that his month-long rehabilitation has been successful. The doctor cheerfully adds that the boy's lost memories are expected to return once he resumes his normal life, hinting that Kaido suffered from amnesia. But that's only part of the story. For the man once known as Tuji, the Korean John Wick, the last thing he remembers is far darker. The sight of his beloved girlfriend lying dead in a pool of blood alongside his cherished dog. Tuji, the deadliest assassin who had hoped to leave behind the shadows of his life, was betrayed by his one and only friend, Hate. Now, he finds himself inside the body of a young boy, bearing a completely different identity from the cold-blooded killer he once was. There's far too much to untangle, and the confusion is overwhelming. Still, during his time in the hospital, he has managed to piece together some of the truth. Kaido Fujiwara, the boy whose body he now inhabits, had been tragically run over by a truck on his way to school. The accident left him with a life-threatening brain injury that required immediate surgery. After a month-long coma, he finally awoke. But it wasn't Kaido who opened his eyes. It was Tuji, now trapped in this new body, genuinely curious about the medical procedure that had saved a life that wasn't originally his. Unfortunately, he has no clue what happened immediately after he was killed. The last thing he remembers is a voice claiming that Tuji's brain was perfectly unharmed. Putting two and two together, Bro realizes he got his ass lobotomized, Kjaka style. Confusion swirls around him regarding the exact aftermath of his death, but an overwhelming rush of emotions takes over. The same ruthless assassin sheds tear after tear, grieving the loss of his beloved girlfriend and the happy future he had envisioned. In the next scene, Kaido is discharged from the hospital and returns to his parents. Kyoko, the boy's mother, breaks down in tears like any mother would upon seeing her child return home safely. His father, Taro Fujiwara, is intriguingly a manga artist who celebrates his son's speedy recovery just as enthusiastically. Kyoko worries about Keio's amnesia, while Taro reassures her that everything will be fine once their son returns to his normal life. Excited, they turn to Kaido for his input. But unlike their joy, the only thing Tuji feels is dread. He understands that his new identity is now tied to Kaido. And if anyone connected to the events of his past life discovers the truth, complications are inevitable. For now, however, he forces a happy smile and assures his parents that he's going to be all right. Internally, the deadliest assassin has decided to blend in, for now. We quickly transition to the moment they arrive home. Kaido experiences genuine shock, realizing that the kid he inhabits is a trust fund baby. The house is massive. It turns out his dad isn't just any manga artist. He's extremely successful. Bro probably wrote something like Solo Leveling, or at least he imagines it. And yes, before anyone starts debating in the comments, he knows it's just a manga universe. Kaido's mother comes from a family of renowned doctors, which is notable in its own right. Kyoko guides him to his room, and upon stepping inside, Kaido takes a moment to absorb his surroundings. The assassin notices the room's meticulous tidiness, perfectly organized, and, honestly, it isn't much different from a typical high schooler space. Recalling the boy's parents, Kaido remembers how worried and anxious they had been, constantly checking on him at the hospital. It's clear that Kaido is deeply loved and cherished by his family, a realization that reminds Tuji of his girlfriend's one true wish, for him to be happy. This is the kind of happiness that the assassin could never experience in his past life. If anything, Tuji resolves not to live a life that would disappoint Kaido's parents. As he looks around, something unusual catches his eye, a photograph. This time, it's not just of the boy's parents, but also of another family of 3. From the image, the assassin deduces that he will need to learn as much as possible about Kaido's background. The following morning brings a new visitor. She arrives in a long limousine, showing no concern that Kaido was only discharged a day ago. It's clear she is determined to see him, likely because of their shared history. The boy's father opens the door to find a radiant Yuzua smiling at him. She eagerly asks about her friend's condition, wanting to know what he's been up to. As the father begins to respond, Kaido peeks in and instantly recognizes Yuzua as the same girl from the photograph. Without hesitation, she pulls him into a tight hug, expressing her concern for his health. Kyoko is glad to see them bonding, just like old times. As for Kaido, he watches everyone's reactions carefully and pieces together that Yuzua must be his childhood friend. She's excited and immediately invites him for a ride to school, but Kaido politely declines. Noticing that Yuzua's family is even wealthier than his own, Taro tries to intervene, but Yuzua playfully shoves him into the car, assuring him she'll handle everything. She then turns back to announce a celebratory party for Kaido's successful recovery. Both parents are left astonished but soon return to their work, while the duo heads off for school. At school, a group of street-smart thugs is plotting trouble. Their leader, Tetsu, plans to target Yuzua, though his friends worry about the consequences of messing with someone so powerful. Essentially, the daughter of Steve Jobs. Giving his crew a sharp glare, Tetsu scolds them for acting like fools and reminds them that they've already gone too far by taking money from a dangerous source. There's no turning back now. They have to carry out the plan. That's just the kind of people they're dealing with. As they finalize their scheme, Yuzua's expensive escort arrives, but the thugs are surprised to see a boy with her. One of her goons explains that he's just a regular kid, her childhood friend who recently had an accident. Intrigued, Tetsu creeps closer with a sly smile. Later, Yuzua and Kaido part ways for their respective classes. Tuji, inside Kaido's body, takes a moment to assess her personality, concluding that she's a kind, loyal friend who looks out for him like an older sister. Entering his new classroom, Kaido experiences a hint of normal life, having never attended a proper school before. The clueless boy asks for his seat, and a classmate is happy to see him. But the same guy's face turns from a smile to the look of fear when he sees the towering Tetsu standing just behind him. The intimidating jerk picks on him, declaring that there's no place for Kaido in this class, and that he's going to be coming with them. Shortly after, the same group takes him outside, while the clueless Ko is out here questioning if he's got a desk here or something. Recalling the way these guys snickered earlier, Kaido senses that they must be messing with him, especially now that they're eyeing him down. Pissed off, Kaido demands to know where his seat is, while Tetsu and his underlings find the situation entertaining. Walking up to the boy, the delinquent offers the innocent boy a dilemma. If he can beg on his knees, then they'll be happy to let him be with just a few punches. Apparently, this guy's gonna stick up his ass because Yuzua likes Ko instead of him. Tetsu even threatens the boy that if he ever dares to step a foot in her direction, he's gonna kill both of them. It's funny that he's saying this to basically John Wick out here. Kaido takes a second to understand the situation, disappointed to learn that these punks truly are his enemies. He's sad, not for himself, but for his new batch of victims who are about to get bodied. The assassin didn't want to hurt anyone in the boys' body, intending to lead a clean life. For a final warning, Kaido calmly tells Tetsu that if he retracts his words, they can settle this peacefully. Naturally, this remark enrages the blonde, showerless punk like he's suffering a Taco Bell-induced disaster. Pulsing with fury, he lunges forward, fist raised, aiming to kill Kaido in a single blow. But Kaido, my glorious king, assesses the trajectory with ease. He considers Tetsu a pure amateur, attacking with a sloppy punch that exposes countless weak spots. The strike is so painfully slow that Kaido doesn't even have to exert himself, effortlessly crushing Tetsu's confidence with a single counterpunch. Realizing this calls for serious measures, Kaido palm strikes Tetsu's chin and ragdolls him to the ground with a flawless judo slam, all while fully aware that the real world is absurdly peaceful compared to the hell he's used to. Moments later, Yuzua rushes over to help only to see Kaido calmly standing in the sunlight, aura practically radiating off him. She realizes immediately this man wasn't in danger. He is the danger. Yuzua stands astonished, questioning whether the boy before her is truly the same Kaido she's known all her life. Yuzua helplessly asks if he's responsible for beating them to the ground. At first, Kaido hesitates, and eventually comes up with the excuse that he was dragged into a pointless fight. Apparently, Yuzua heard the news too, which is why she rushed to the rooftop to check on him. She wants to believe that an innocent-looking boy like Kaido couldn't have been involved in such a brutal fight, but that hope falters when she spots a tinge of blood on his collar and fears he might have been hurt. Kaido reassures her that he's perfectly fine, but Yuzua is a worried mess, roaring at him for making her worry like that. Her anger quickly shifts to sadness as she struggles to accept the idea of him being hurt. The assassin wonders what happened and apologizes anyway. They decide to return to class, but as they leave, Kaido hears the murmuring of the beaten-up blonde, who is furious and plotting revenge. The scene then cuts to the late-night party Yuzua had planned earlier. His parents bring out champagne and the most tempting dishes imaginable. Kaido can't help but wonder if they hired Gordon Ramsay for this feast. While his parents laugh and enjoy the celebration, Kaido's mind drifts again to the memory of his beloved girlfriend Mai, who used to smile at him the same way and urge him to eat quickly. Hearing her words, the man turned from a killing machine into an eating machine. Even their dog wanted a bite of the food. That same night, Tuji went to his girlfriend, wondering if this was what it felt like to share a happy moment with one's own family. That same emotion lingers in his current self as he finally tastes what a normal life feels like. Anyway, Yuzua shows up late to the party, even though it was her idea from the start. The boy's father remarks that Yuzua has been going through tough times lately, even if she hides it behind a brave face. Suddenly, a strange unease creeps into the boy's chest, as if his instincts are warning him. Curious, he checks his phone and sees his childhood friend calling. He answers, asking about her condition, only to hear the voice of the same punk from earlier. The punk laughs, glad he figured it out, and orders him to come to a specific spot based on his coordinates. If Kaido refuses, they'll make sure Yuzua suffers the consequences. To prove the point, the punk reveals that she and her driver are being held hostage, so there's no bluff. Yuzua's voice bursts through from the background as she begs him not to come. But our boy has already heard enough to know she'll be hurt if he doesn't act. So he asks for the location, and the delinquent gladly gives it. The call ends soon after, and Kaido pretends he was talking to another friend instead of her. Telling his parents he needs to run a quick errand, Kaido assures them he'll be back shortly. The scene shifts to a dark, abandoned factory where nearly a dozen armed men wait to tear him apart. But that's not all. The organization's leader has shown up too, while his bodyguard casually works out in the back. The man is furious that Tatsuya even made the call, slamming a can into his face for it. He's been trying to stay low profile, and being summoned here out of nowhere puts him at serious risk. Anyway, the scumbag explains that Yuzua has been captured to carry out the organization's orders. They want to extract secret information from her about her inheritance, but so far she hasn't cracked, insisting over and over that she knows nothing. That's the real reason Tatsuya called her best friend. The kid who's always hanging around her, believing that if they threaten to hurt him, she'll finally break. If that works, he'll complete his mission and earn his spot in the organization. The leader is fine with the plan, but warns the blonde what will happen if he fails. You see, Inakami, the muscle freak in the room, isn't the type to negotiate. This man's only orders are to kill, which he proves by hurling a dumbbell so fast it rips through a wall. Inakami's very presence makes the blonde nearly wet himself, because if he fails, he's the next target. Yuzua shouts, making things worse by provoking them, while her assistant tries to calm her down. That only earns him a beating as Tatsuya stomps him in rage, furious that someone dared to interfere. He orders his men to drag the assistant away and turns his attention back to Yuzua, warning her that if she doesn't talk, her childhood friend will die. Even then, the helpless girl insists she has no idea what he's talking about. Enraged, Tatsuya demands Kaido be brought in immediately. Right now, they've got 40 armed thugs and a hulking ex-wrestler who once killed a man in the ring. With odds like that, there's no way the kid walks out alive. The blonde is certain Kaido won't make it past Inakami, and eventually Yuzua will break. The perspective shifts to our boy, who finally reaches the factory. Outside, a group of idiots wait, unaware they're about to become his latest victims. Calmly strolling in, Kaido shows no fear, and though one thug quickly recognizes him, it's already too late. With a ruthless strike to the neck, he drops him instantly. 3 go down before they can blink, and the rest rush in, sealing their fate. The high schooler wipes the floor with them, even tossing one into a trash bin. With a murderous glare, Kaido warns the others to stay out of his sight if they want to keep living in one piece. And yes, the one piece is real. Back inside, Tatsuya's boss starts to worry that the kid still hasn't arrived, wondering if he chickened out. After all, he's just a kid. But the blonde scumbag knows better. What he fought on the rooftop wasn't a kid, but a demon. He tries to convince his leader, Suwa, that their enemy is far from normal. And right on cue, they hear their men outside chanting Fujiwara's name. Yuzua is stunned, while the blonde cowered. Inakami's only command is to kill, which he proves by hurling a dumbbell so fast it smashes through a wall, making the blonde trembling in terror. The door bursts open as a body crashes to the floor at Tatsuya's feet, and Inakami, thrilled at last, turns to face his true target. Kaido, calm and collected, reminds Tatsuya of his earlier warning, straining to hold back enough strength not to kill outright. Suwa, baffled, questions how a single boy managed to wipe out 20 men alone, but Kaido only straightens his tie and demands to see his friend. Yuzua's desperate scream echoes from ahead, letting him pinpoint her location exactly 30 meters away, reassuring him she's alive as he surveys the room of enemies ready to strike. In barely 53 seconds, he blitzes through them all with light speed, flattening everyone in sight, leaving Tatsuya crawling helplessly in terror. Grabbing him by the collar, Kaido promises suffering before unleashing a storm of punches that shatter his clavicles, ribs, and elbows, then slamming him against the wall with ease. Suwa's men, paralyzed with fear, want to flee, but their leader demands they stay, though even he begins to realize their target is no boy but a monster. Blindfolded, Yuzua sees none of it until Kaido reaches her, softly assuring her safety as he moves to untie her ropes, only for the behemoth to suddenly drive a massive fist into him, the brutal blow landing as Yuzua screams in horror. Suwa briefly believes victory is possible thanks to the wrestler's monstrous build, but when the dust clears, it's revealed his punch never landed. Kaido had countered with a kick that stopped him cold. Unfazed, the brute launches another strike, only for Kaido to redirect it and smash him in the face with a bone-crushing punch that shatters his nose. Even then, the wrestler refuses to believe Kaido can defeat him. Trading blows, the assassin realizes this is the strongest opponent in the room, and with his current high schooler physique, he can't drop him in a single hit like usual. Shifting tactics, Kaido vanishes from sight, reappearing at Inakami's ribs, where he unleashes a relentless barrage, knees and fists hammering the same point until the muscle-bound giant feels fear before finally collapsing unconscious. David has slain Goliath. Witnessing their champion crumble, the 6 remaining thugs make the smart choice and flee. Though Kaido would normally finish them off, his priority is Yuzua. He rushes to untie her, masking his relief with a smile and assuring her that everything is under control and her assistant Kawaii is safe. But Yuzua, rattled and furious, grabs his tie and scolds him for choosing the most reckless solution possible. He could have called the police or gotten adults involved, yet instead he went full action hero and soloed 40 men. Still, beneath her anger is gratitude, even if it hurts her to see him constantly put his life at risk. Her words echo those of Marai, who always begged Tuji to come home, fearing she would one day lose him for good. Kaido reassures Yuzua, promising that he'll never make her worry again. But their tender moment is cut short by the groans of Kawaii, the poor assistant who got beaten up for nothing. Soon after, the wail of police sirens signals that it's time to head home. Meanwhile, Suwa barely manages to escape, shaken by the fact that even Inokami couldn't stop the boy. His fears deepen when his own boss, a shadowy kingpin of the underworld, declares that a Lancelot has been dispatched to deal with Kaido for interfering with the Great Will Organization. Back on Kaido's side, he rests at home, replaying the image of his worried parents when he returned, thankful the police didn't question him given his supposed lack of involvement. Still, he's unsettled by the unanswered mystery of the thug's true mission, Suwa's disappearance, and the ominous sense that something worse is waiting in the dark. Determined not to let anyone else around him get hurt, Kaido steps outside to clear his head, only to dodge a sudden flurry of projectiles, springing into the air with sharp reflexes. His hidden assailant is stunned that the boy evaded the attack, but Kaido had already suspected someone was tailing him and lured the spy out here on purpose. Facing the figure, Kaido demands to know his intentions, while the stranger, eerily amused, admits it's the first time anyone has ever noticed him, let alone from inside their own home. This confirms what he already suspected. Kaido isn't an ordinary kid. Recognizing the man's skill, Kaido acknowledges that his stalker is leagues above the factory thugs, existing far outside the rules of normal society, raising the question of why such a figure was watching him at all. Kaido's stalker, impressed by his instincts, suspects the boy has ties to the same underworld he belongs to, but Kaido brushes it off, holding onto the mask of a normal high schooler. Refusing to waste more words, the man unsheathes his blades and declares the end of Fujiwara Kaido. His name is Sanjo, ranked 67 within the Great Will Organization, an elite assassin whose stance alone reveals his precision and killing experience. Kaido steadies himself, reflecting bitterly that he, too, was once part of that very organization. Far away at Great Will headquarters, Council member Akitsuki fumes over the failed kidnapping of Yuzua and laments that they hadn't deployed a lance from the start. To understand why, one must recognize the group's power. 1,000 assassins under its control, with the top 100, known as the Lances, boasting near-perfect success rates and enough might to plunge the world into chaos. Fellow member Minami explains that their true objective is the legendary Fenrir seed, a treasure said to alter the balance of the world, which rumors suggest Yuzua possesses. Though there's no proof, Yoshima reveals that he has already dispatched Sanjo to retrieve it, shocking the others, as summoning a lance requires Odin's approval. But Yoshima has already gained that permission, insisting that the recent resistance proves their enemies are no ordinary opponents and must be eliminated at the hands of the Lances. Back at the scene, Kaido studies Sanjo's flawless stance, confirming his worst fear. Yuzua's suffering isn't just about inheritance or petty thugs. It's the work of the Great Will itself, and the fight before him is only the beginning of something far greater. Sanjo studies Kaido's stance and instantly concludes that this boy isn't a high schooler at all. His fearlessness in the face of blades feels far too natural. Recognizing him as a danger to Yuzua, Kaido lunges first, throwing sharp punches aimed at vital points, but the assassin evades with ease, impressed by the kid's speed and precision. For a moment, Sanjo almost believes he's facing another assassin of equal class. Still, he isn't ordinary. His blade nearly pierces Kaido's face, forcing him back to reassess. From that brief clash, Kaido realizes Sanjo specializes in controlling distance, using his range to dictate the fight. Shifting gears, the lance goes on the offensive, leaping into the air with a butterfly slash before flowing into another stance mid-motion to overwhelm him. Kaido's evasions excite Sanjo, but the boy quickly understands he's outmatched in raw strength and speed. His only option is to use the environment. Spotting an opportunity, Kaido sets a trap, slipping out of his jacket mid-assault and countering with a precise strike to Sanjo's neck. Yet the lance narrowly evades, retaliating with a brutal slash that draws blood, leaving Kaido shaken at the true gap in power. His weaker physique limits him, but Sanjo admires the calculated movements that reveal Kaido's professionalism. Though he notes one critical flaw, the boy lacks true killing intent. At last, Sanjo admits the truth. He was sent not just to kill a student, but to eliminate a real threat to the organization's goals regarding Yuzua. With this confession, Kaido's worst suspicion solidifies. Every attack on Yuzua traces back to the Great Will organization. Deciding to switch up his fighting style, the assassin activates his combat mode, striking a menacing pose and unleashing the full force of his killing intent. Sanjo launches into his insane dragon dance, a whirlwind of hundreds of blade strikes that even strip bark from trees, forcing Kaido to scramble for cover. But the relentless storm of slashes slices through his hiding spot, bursting a geyser of water and leaving him bleeding once more. Kaido quickly realizes this isn't just a normal assassin. He's up against an S-class lance. Sanjo, now frenzied, accuses Kaido of being a killer as well and mocks him by suggesting Yuzua's death wouldn't matter, a remark that triggers Kaido's deepest trauma. Seeing his friend's face in place of his late girlfriend's, Kaido snaps, tackling the assassin head-on, shattering his blade, and carving a devastating slash across his shoulder in a blur of speed Sanjo can't even comprehend. From there, Kaido refuses to hold back, matching speed and skill. With such speed, Sanjo can't help but recall the wrath of Gungar, the #1 assassin among their ranks, as Kaido brutally tears into him, leaving his body drenched in blood. The lance realizes too late just how hopelessly outclassed he's been from the start. Trembling in fear, he can't even twitch a finger, his arm tendons completely severed. Yet Kaido spares him a single leg, coldly assuring him that his career as a lance is over and his identity as a killer destroyed, a punishment far crueler than death, for men like him can never live among ordinary society. Before leaving, Kaido demands answers, warning he'll cut the other leg if Sanjo refuses. He asks who ordered the hit and why Yuzua is the target. But Sanjo only laughs maniacally, declaring his undying loyalty to his god and vowing never to betray his will. Confirms Kaido's suspicions, but sirens erupt nearby. Sanjo's recklessness has already drawn the police. Using his one good leg, the assassin limps away, mockingly advising Kaido to run before he's caught. Before vanishing, he taunts him one last time, questioning if he truly wants to live as an ordinary high schooler. The words pierce Kaido, dragging him into memories of a life where no one believed he could ever escape the blood-soaked path of an assassin. Now, drenched in gore, the doubt resurfaces. Can he even call himself a student anymore? That answer remains uncertain. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, Yoshima is briefed on the incident. Izumo reports that Sanjo has been crippled beyond repair, effectively dismantled as a lance. Akitsuki, thrilled by the outcome, marvels at the unknown fighter who defeated such an elite. But when Izumo reveals Sanjo's final words, that the boy's movements mirrored those of Gungar, the name alone sends a ripple of silence across the room. For everyone there knows the terror it carries. Even Akitsuki thinks it's an exaggeration to compare this mysterious fighter to Gungar, the strongest knife user to ever live. Izumo understands the doubt, since that name isn't thrown around lightly, but the facts remain. Whoever this boy is, he crippled a lance and ruined their operation. Minami cuts in to halt the argument while Akitsuki keeps whining about the significance of Toji's legacy, yet none of them can deny it. The so-called bodyguard of Yuzua is far stronger than anyone anticipated. This development forces Yoshima to reconsider their entire approach, leaving him unsettled about the true identity of Keo Fujiwara. Meanwhile, our boy retreats to his room, patching himself up in secret. The weight of his dual life bears down on him. He should be an ordinary high schooler, not a blood-soaked assassin. But he knows Yuzua is still in danger, and now that he's dismantled the lance, the organization will surely mark him as a bigger threat. Weakness is no longer an option. If Kaido wants to preserve this fragile peace, he must rebuild his strength and prepare for the storm ahead. Back at headquarters, Akitsuki volunteers to make the boy his personal target. The others are surprised at his eagerness, but Izumo agrees. It will take more than an ordinary lance to deal with someone of this caliber. Ranked 9th overall, Akitsuki is no lightweight. He's one of the deadliest assassins alive, and he's more than eager to test himself against the mystery surrounding Keo Fujiwara. A day later, after the chaos of Yuzua's kidnapping, Kaido finally returns home to a warm welcome. His parents and Yuzua throw him a small celebration to mark his hospital discharge. His father proudly presents the omiras he worked so hard to make. Though, judging by the cursed look of the dish, it's a miracle anyone calls it food. To soften the blow, Yuzua follows up with her own gift, a steaming plate of rich, mouth-watering beef stew made just for him. About 2 months ago, at the same time as the car accident that put Ko into a coma, Yuzua also lost her father, though she hid her grief behind her cheerful personality so no one would notice how much she was hurting. When Ko apologizes for making her worry, she brushes it off, saying he hasn't changed, though she admits he's matured a little. She recalls how even as a child he was reckless, always fighting bigger kids who bullied her despite knowing he'd lose. And just like back then, he came for her when she was kidnapped, though she couldn't see his moves because she was blindfolded. Growing suspicious, Yuzua asks how he saved her, but Ko dodges by saying everyone got scared, which is partly true since he took down their gang mercilessly, leaving her doubtful yet grateful. She confesses she was terrified when threatened, but seeing his face shine like the morning sun filled her with relief and happiness. So she thanks him, and Ko smoothly promises he'll always save her no matter what, making her blush. Embarrassed, she pulls him in for a selfie, proudly declaring she'll set it as her wallpaper to remember the day, unaware it could cause rumors, but quietly adds it will help her move on. Inspired by Ko's strength after his accident, she decides to stop clinging to her father's death, and Ko, seeing her struggle just like him, feels even more determined to protect her. But when Yuzua shows him a picture of her father, Ko's world shatters as he recognizes the man from his final mission, realizing with crushing guilt that he was the one who took her father away from her. Realizing it might start, Ko freezes. His blood runs cold as he recognizes the man. With a shaky voice, he confirms if that was really her father, and Yuzua nods with a soft laugh, teasing that his amnesia must be worse than she thought since her dad was always so kind to him. With tears brimming in her eyes, she explains that while many people badmouthed her father, to her he was the most loving man in the world, someone she cherished with all her heart. Staring at the picture of Yuzua on her father's back, Ko feels his soul tearing apart. He's seen that exact image before, on the day he completed his final mission. The realization crushes him. He was the one who stole Yuzua's father away from her. Yuzua jokes that their selfie might spark strange rumors at school, which crushes him, and Yuzua notices, asking why he suddenly looks so down. Standing before the daughter of the Akitsuki group's late chairman, the very man he assassinated, Kaido tries to rationalize that Hate pulled the trigger and that he never would have taken the mission if he had known the target was her father. Still, the guilt gnaws at him, because back then he followed the Great Will's orders without hesitation, believing Chairman Akagi had betrayed the organization, and he hadn't felt even a shred of remorse. Now, realizing he not only robbed Yuzua of her father, but also dragged her into danger, he contemplates confessing his past as an agent of the organization that killed him. Grinding his teeth in frustration, he cannot bring himself to decide. The next day at school, he sits quietly at his desk while the girls chatter about the new transfer student, all hoping he's a handsome guy. Kaido ultimately resolves not to tell Yuzua the truth, knowing the organization won't stop hunting him just because he took out a single spear, and his only real choice is to protect her no matter what. His thoughts are cut short when the teacher announces the arrival of the transfer student, and the moment the boy speaks, Kaido instantly recognizes the voice. Staring in disbelief at the cheerful, pink-haired student, Kaido realizes something is wrong. His suspicion proves correct when the boy, with an unblinking stare, silently declares him as the target. There's no doubt, this pink-haired brat is Katsuki Bidant, one of the organization's 12 divine spears. Later in PE, the crowd cheers wildly as the new student shows off ridiculous skills on the court, casually landing another basket. The girls swoon. His teammates praise his ability despite his small stature, and Makoto humbly credits the pass, firing up his team for another play, while the opponents fume at how quickly the transfer student has stolen the spotlight. Kaido keeps his guard up, unsettled by the fact that the pink-haired Lance has yet to make a move, leaving him to wonder what the assassin is planning. The Lances are no ordinary killers. They're the top 100 assassins in the world, each ranked by number, and among them the top 12. Known as the legendary spears, serve directly under their supreme leader, Odin. These monstrous warriors possess strength that could rival armies and are only dispatched for the most vital missions. That fact alone convinces Kaido that their real target must be Yuzua. The thought weighs heavily on him as memories of his last mission resurface, reminding him of the chairman's supposed theft of a secret treasure, which may be the reason the organization is after his daughter. But with his weakened high school body, Kaido can't help but wonder if he's truly capable of protecting Yuzua and everyone else at school should Akitsuki strike here. Later, back in the classroom, Makoto continues to be the center of attention, with the girls begging him to join them for karaoke. His popularity soars even higher when he casually mentions having practiced basketball in the United States, making the girls swoon harder. Watching from a distance, Kaido notes that Akitsuki has decided not to act today, but he resolves to stay vigilant, knowing tomorrow could be a different story. Right after class, Yuzua calls out to Kaido and asks if he can go somewhere with her after school, but he immediately shuts her down, insisting she head straight home instead. Before she can protest, Makoto suddenly places a hand on Kaido's shoulder and greets her by name, instantly putting Kaido on edge. Yuzua is surprised and asks how the new transfer student knows her since they've never met, to which Makoto casually replies that she's the heiress of the Akagi group fortune, leaving her stunned. With a carefree smile, he explains that his father owed a debt to her late father, so he was told to watch over her. But before he can invite her anywhere, Kaido interrupts with an excuse about needing to see the nurse, shooting Makoto a cold glare that forces him to back off. Yuzua thanks Kaido with a smile, once again grateful for his protection. Later, on the rooftop, Makoto admires the view and jokes that Kaido must have brought him there to confess, but Kaido stays silent, forcing him to laugh it off. Makoto then casually comments on how cute Yuzua is in person, though he admits it's hard to believe she's really the chairman's daughter. Cutting straight to the point, Kaido demands to know his real purpose at this school, even asking if this is revenge for Sanjo. Makoto, amused, asks if Kaido was really the one who took Sanjo down and notes that it's impressive he managed it with so few injuries. When Kaido presses again, growing visibly irritated, Makoto finally drops the act and reveals that he's after the secret treasure Yuzua supposedly inherited from her father, confirming Kaido's worst fears. He admits that Akitsuki doesn't even know what the treasure is yet. They just want information for now. Makoto offers Kaido a spot in Akitsuki, tempting him by saying they only target bad people, make good money, and that Yuzua might even hand over the treasure to him since they're close. With a twisted smile, he warns Kaido that joining is the only way both he and Yuzua might survive an encounter with the organization. He then walks to the edge of the roof, holding out his hand and threatening that if Kaido resists, innocent students will get hurt. Refusing to let that happen, Kaido charges forward with a flurry of attacks, but Makoto dodges with ease, impressed by his skill. Kaido suddenly grabs his arm, exposing the tiny cube he knew the assassin would use, bombs, his signature weapon known in Akitsuki as Biden's method of mixing explosives with martial arts. The mention of his codename shocks Makoto, who demands to know how Kaido has so much insider knowledge. Smiling like a maniac, he pulls out 6 more bombs and declares he's raising the stakes. Kaido springs into action, catching the first 3 before launching himself off the wall to snag the other 3 with his feet. Watching in disbelief, Makoto remarks that Kaido is anything but normal before tossing yet another bomb straight toward the ground below. Kaido dives desperately to intercept it as Makoto mocks him, reminding him that he can't possibly protect the entire school by himself. Kaido fails to catch the cube as it drops, and Makoto snaps his fingers, detonating it midair before it hits the ground. The blast shocks the students below, sending them into a panic, but Makoto laughs and explains he rigged it to explode early so no one would get hurt, calling it a bonus for Kaido's impressive catch of the first 6 bombs. Just as Kaido is about to lose his temper, Makoto interrupts, producing even more bombs and demanding to know his true identity while once again inviting him to join Akitsuki. After a moment's thought, Kaido firmly rejects him, insisting he's just a normal high schooler who would never join. Makoto's face falls in disappointment, muttering that Kaido won't be convinced unless lives are lost, only for Kaido to drop a single name, Gunger. The name makes Makoto spin around in shock, his expression wild, while Kaido calmly admits that he was once known by that title. Before Makoto can react, the school speakers announce an evacuation, and staff rush to the rooftop. Realizing Kaido stalled him on purpose, Makoto glares furiously and warns he has 3 days to decide or he'll regret it. Afterward, classes are dismissed early, with students buzzing about the explosion and relieved no one was hurt. Yuzua asks why Kaido isn't heading home, but he tells her he has something important to take care of and warns her to stay safe since the blast could have been an attack meant for her. At that moment, Kawai steps up passionately, declaring that security has been tightened and that he has started training in martial arts to protect Yuzua himself. Kaido brushes off Kawai's over-the-top enthusiasm, which only annoys Yuzua, who tells him to text her if anything happens. He agrees, but once she leaves, he turns his gaze back toward Makoto as if silently warning him he's not deceived. Meanwhile, Makoto smirks to himself, certain that Tsuji would never let anyone tarnish Gunger's name. Later, riding the local train, Kaido hopes he's managed to shift Akitsuki's focus away from Yuzua and onto himself, though he knows full well that Akitsuki, the youngest of the Divine Spears, is no pushover. Clenching his fist, he admits he's grown more comfortable in his new body, but fears he's still not strong enough to take on a Divine Spear in 3 days. The thought unsettles him, yet it doesn't waver his determination to protect Yuzua, even if it means killing the pink-haired assassin. Arriving at Shibuya Station, he instinctively heads to the apartment where he first died, leaping onto the balcony while questioning why he even came, knowing Mirai wouldn't be waiting. When the door swings open, he braces for a trap but finds the crime scene cleaned up, the place otherwise unchanged. A sudden noise snaps him into a fighting stance, but instead of an assassin, his dog John bounds and wagging his tail, frisbee still in his mouth. The sight drags Kaido back to the days when he and Mirai would play fetch with John, and his eyes blur with tears as he realizes his dog still remembers him. Then his gaze falls on a photo of him, Mirai, and John at the beach, recalling a road trip when she told him that even if she never understood his work, she only wanted him to be happy. He told her he was satisfied and would die protecting her, but she softly replied that a dead man couldn't be happy and begged him to live for once. Now, overwhelmed with grief, Kaido regrets he couldn't give her the life she deserved, and she remains only a memory. Returning home with John, he tells his family the dog's previous owners had to give him up. Kaido brings John home, wondering if his family will accept the dog, but before he can even negotiate, Taro eagerly agrees to adopt him, and Kyoto suggests they take turns walking him. When asked the dog's name, Kaido explains that the previous owners called him John. Later, he texts Yuzua to check if anything has happened, and she replies that things are boring, though she's curious about his new dog and asks if she can come pet it. He gently tells her not to come now, smiling at the message as his resolve hardens. Determined, he calls Akitsuki, who mockingly asks if he's already changed his mind since the 3 days aren't up yet. But Kaido's voice is firm. He declares he's done playing games and demands they settle it on the school rooftop before dawn, swearing to end things once and for all because he is Gunger. When Kaido mentions the name Gunger, Akitsuki becomes so enraged that he crushes the phone in his hand, furious that someone like Kaido dares to claim the title once held by Lord Tsuji, the very embodiment of a perfect assassin. His mind drifts back 3 years to the Middle East, where during a mission he had made a fatal mistake that left him surrounded and his left arm blown apart. Just as he accepted death, Tsuji appeared and wiped out the enemies in an instant, saving him. Grateful, Akitsuki had urged Tsuji to return alive, promising to finish the mission. Now, on the rooftop the next morning, Akitsuki mockingly asks Kaido what he's thinking, coming to fight in a school uniform. Kaido replies he plans to defeat him first and then attend class. Laughing, Akitsuki admits Kaido's movements feel just like Gunger's, something he once admired, but now despises, vowing to roast him alive. With a sinister smirk, he reveals a secret. Bombs are planted around the school, and because his prosthetic arm is wired to his brain, he can detonate them instantly with a twitch of his fingers. If Kaido loses, countless lives will be lost. The only way to stop it, he says, is to sever the link by either cutting off his arm or destroying his brain. But Kaido calmly counters with a third option, knocking Akitsuki unconscious, which would disable the bombs. Shocked, Akitsuki realizes Kaido knows him better than expected. When expected, Kaido steals himself, declaring he isn't here to kill Akitsuki, but only to stop him. Akitsuki grins, doubting he can pull it off, and launches a sudden attack. Kaido notes his only edge lies in knowing Akitsuki's tactics and personality, since his current body lacks his past strength. Akitsuki tosses bombs that explode to blind and deafen, then follows with a left hook, but Kaido anticipates it, dodges, and counters with a strike to the chest. Akitsuki twists midair to evade and lands a crushing blow that sends Kaido flying. Kaido softens the impact by rolling back, which Akitsuki acknowledges as the right move, warning that a direct hit from his prosthetic arm would have shattered Kaido's bones. With a sinister smile, he vows that if Kaido is truly Gungar, he has far worse in store. The punch already cracked Kaido's ribs, reminding him that divine spears cannot be beaten by knowledge alone. Yet Kaido resolves that even if peace was never meant for a killer like him, he will survive without killing for the sake of those who care about him. With that resolve, he throws his strongest punch and clashes with Akitsuki in a flurry of rapid blows, until a sudden sharp pain in his head disrupts his focus. Akitsuki seizes the opening with relentless strikes, forcing Kaido back, then lands a heavy kick that drives him across the rooftop. As the gap widens, Akitsuki hurls another bomb, detonating it in a massive blast before charging in for the final strike. But Kaido, already predicting the move, blocks the full-force punch and tells him that his rage and killing intent will never be enough to break his will. Kaido absorbs all of Akitsuki's rage and channels it into his resolve, his senses sharpening until he can perceive not just the world around him, but even his enemy's consciousness. Akitsuki, unsettled by this sudden shift, wonders how Kaido managed to block what should have been a blind spot strike, as if he had foreseen it. Determined to break through, he drops a bomb behind himself and uses the blast to propel another cube at Kaido, but Kaido narrowly evades by shifting into Jinwoo at the last second, letting the explosion erupt just behind him. Akitsuki grudgingly admits his opponent is impressive, though he reminds himself that a divine spear would never be sent if Kaido could be killed so easily. Kaido gives no response, silently bracing for whatever comes next. Elsewhere, the explosions rattle his home, waking John and startling his mother, who assumes the sounds must be fireworks. Back on the rooftop, the clash intensifies. Though Akitsuki's hands are nearly impossible to follow, Kaido predicts each move flawlessly thanks to his knowledge of the assassin's patterns. When Akitsuki prepares to unleash 4 bombs set to detonate in front of him, Kaido intercepts by kicking them apart, scattering explosions across the rooftop. Shielding himself from the blast, he steadies his stance and immediately evades the assassin's follow-up punch, countering with sharp jabs that force Akitsuki onto the defensive. For the first time, the pink-haired killer feels a creeping unease, realizing he cannot land a single clean hit and questioning what the hell is happening to this so-called school kid. Akitsuki seethes with frustration, thinking Kaido's eyes and ears should have been long destroyed by the bombs, his lungs scorched by the heat, and yet the boy's gaze cuts through him as if reading every move. The sight drags him into a memory of Gungar, the man he once revered, and when Kaido's earlier words echo that he is Gungar, rage overtakes him. He screams at Kaido not to mock him, demanding to know if he truly is his Tuji and why he chose to appear now of all times. Meanwhile, Kaido, barely holding on and gasping for breath, keeps his fists raised, fully aware that though he can anticipate Akitsuki's strikes, his untrained body cannot keep pace forever. Resolute, he leaps onto the rooftop ledge, deciding to stop running once and for all. Akitsuki sees this as his chance, gathering bombs in his hand and daring Kaido to try dodging them. With unyielding determination, Kaido surges forward, vowing to himself that he will never again allow his choices to cause unhappiness. The bombs erupt, engulfing the rooftop in blinding light and searing heat, but Kaido charges through, blinded yet guided by his sharpened senses. He strikes toward Akitsuki, who narrowly dodges and counters with a bomb-charged punch aimed at Kaido's head. But Kaido anticipates the move, blocking with his elbow and stunning his foe before slamming that same elbow into Akitsuki's face. He follows with a brutal flurry, a shout of Akitsuki's name, a crushing punch to the body, and a final devastating kick to the gut. The force shatters the assassin's prosthetic arm and sends him flying over the rooftop's edge, unconscious and plummeting toward the concrete below. Just as his body falls, the scene shifts to a flashback. A younger Akitsuki once urged Gungar to abandon him and escape danger, but Gungar refused, declaring he would never let even a single friend die, no matter. The assassin smirks, telling Kaido that he can't possibly take on the entire organization alone, but Kaido stands firm, declaring that he will no matter what, because as a former assassin, that's the only justice he can live by. The words and determined look strike Akitsuki like lightning, reminding him of Gungar. When Kaido boldly adds that no matter if it's the Great Will or even Odin himself, he'll defeat them all, Akitsuki bursts out laughing. Repeating Kaido's words, he calls him insane, but then admits that only someone like Tuji could say something that wild, finally believing he really is Gungar. With a grin, he asks why Tuji looks like a scrawny toothpick when he should already be buried 6 feet under. Kaido explains that he thought he died too, but when he woke up, he was inside Kaido's body, and now only his mind remains. This revelation makes Akitsuki sit up in shock. It's that Odin must have been the one who gave the order for his assassination. Akitsuki goes pale. Kaido presses on, saying he needs to grow stronger and asks Akitsuki for his help. The assassin recalls their past once more before laughing and shaking his head, telling him to quit joking. Raising his broken metal arm, he says that no matter who orders it, he can never kill him now that he knows Kaido is truly Tuji. When asked if he'll return to the organization, Akitsuki flatly refuses, saying that going back after such a loss is impossible. Instead, he says he'll take time to investigate for himself, since it's still hard to believe Odin would truly target Tuji. He advises Kaido to leave too before the police arrive, joking that school will probably be shut down for quite a while. As Akitsuki walks away, Kaido starts to call out to him, but suddenly collapses, his vision blurring and his consciousness fading. Confused, he wonders what's happening, just before a group of unknown assassins steps out of the shadows, retrieving Gungar as planned. As Kaido drifts into darkness, Kaido's eyes snap open as he looks around in confusion, realizing with shock that he's back in his original body. A voice speaks again, telling him that they are now part of one another. As Kaido slowly drifts toward him, Tuji's eyes widen, stunned by what he sees. Kaido calls out, urging him to protect Yuzua with his power, but Tuji refuses to let go, shouting his name and reaching for him, only to suddenly wake up drenched in cold sweat, greeted by the familiar face of his dog. Still lying on the floor, he struggles to piece together where he is. Downstairs, his parents anxiously watch the news reporting yet another explosion at the school. Kyoto worries aloud, suggesting they take Kaido to the hospital, while reading his earlier message, saying he came home early and went to sleep because he felt dizzy. His father tries to calm her, insisting Kaido is probably just exhausted from everything that's happened and will be fine once he rests. Meanwhile, Kaido stares blankly at the ceiling, his head still foggy, realizing he's been asleep for half a day. He remembers collapsing on the rooftop, then waking up in his room with his wounds already treated. The memory of Akitsuki finally accepting him as Tuji lingers in his mind, but doubt creeps in. Did he really show enough strength in such a frail body to convince him? That strange surge earlier, as if Akitsuki's emotions had poured into him, had been the only reason he survived, and without it, he knows he would already be dead. Kaido is still puzzled about what happened to his body when his phone suddenly rings, and seeing Yuzua's name, he quickly answers, shouting to make sure she's safe, which startles her. She immediately flips the concern back on him, upset that he ignored all her messages since morning. He apologizes, explaining he had been asleep, and admits he's just relieved she's unharmed. Yuzua tells him about the school explosion that blew off the roof, and that classes have been canceled for a week, but Kaido pretends to know nothing about it. Sensing something suspicious, she bluntly asks if he's involved again, making him break out in a cold sweat. She scolds him for always getting into trouble and even questions if his supposed sickness is actually an injury from the blast. Kaido sits up, thinking she's sharp as ever, but he turns the concern back on her, asking if she's been in danger and assure her not to worry because he has decided that no matter what, he will protect her. Flustered, Yuzua blushes and tells him not to distract her with cheesy hero talk. While she continues speaking, Kaido's mom answers the doorbell downstairs, only to find no one there, just a package left on the doorstep. Moments later, she knocks on Kaido's door, telling him a package has arrived and leaving it in the hallway. Suspicious, since he didn't order anything, Kaido picks it up after Yuzua ends their call, noting it feels harmless. But when he opens it, his eyes widen. It's his original assassin knife, along with a card. Shocked, he wonders who could have sent it. Picking up the card, he sees a set of coordinates and resolves to meet the sender no matter what. Following the directions, Kaido wanders through Shinjuku and notices how the busy streets quickly thin out, making him suspect the sender chose a hidden spot on purpose. He even considers the possibility that it's the person who transplanted his brain, maybe Kaido himself. Reaching an apartment complex, he immediately senses it would be the perfect hideout. Inside, the lobby is empty, but as he searches further, he discovers an entrance to a lower level and instantly suspects it's a trap set by the mysterious sender of the knife. When Kaido finally reaches the basement parking area, he pushes the door open and walks forward, questioning why he was summoned here, when suddenly he narrowly avoids a sneak attack. An arrow lands behind him, and he spots a man with a crossbow stepping out alongside a female accomplice. The woman remarks that his dodge wasn't luck, since the real Gungar would be capable of evading even bullets, then adds that his brain seems to be functioning perfectly. Kaido, not recognizing them, demands to know if they were the ones who called him here, but the crossbow wielder dismisses him as unworthy of answers and instead loads another arrow, declaring that he must prove himself through combat. The next shot forces Kaido to move in the nick of time, and as he does, he notices a pair of glowing eyes glaring at him from the shadows. The girl lunges in with an elbow strike, but he slips away effortlessly, letting her smash into a pillar. Assessing them quickly, Kaido gauges that they're mid-level lance fighters using an old organization tactic, pressuring with range fire to create an opening, then closing in with hand-to-hand strikes. As she swings again, Kaido deflects her punches, only to sense the man coming at him with a hook from behind. He pivots smoothly, countering with a brutal double strike. An uppercut to the girl's stomach followed by a roundhouse to the man's chin. The girl is sent flying while the man staggers, dazed by the impact before charging in again. Reading his movements clearly, Kaido predicts the sequence of a 4-hit combo starting with a downward slash. So instead of dodging, he intercepts the opening blow and drives a jab straight into the man's chest. With each exchange, his spatial awareness, reaction time, and predictive instincts heighten rapidly, allowing him to overwhelm them with absolute precision. The two assassins reel from their defeat when the woman realizes this wasn't the work of some ordinary kid, but the legendary killer Gungar himself. The crossbow man, unwilling to accept humiliation, laughs bitterly and praises Kaido's skill before reaching into his pocket, declaring he won't end things here. His partner shouts for him to stop, warning that it goes against their orders, but he refuses to listen. Suddenly, a third voice cuts through the tension, commanding him to stand down. From the shadows steps a familiar figure, Dr. Kyosuke Kuji, the organization's doctor, calmly greeting Tuji and remarking that the brain transplant was a success. Kaido's eyes widen in recognition, instantly accusing him of being behind the entire surgery and linking him to the organization. But Kuji raises a hand, telling him to relax, explaining that while he was indeed the one who summoned him here, he wasn't the one who performed the transplant. He claims he has left the Great Will organization and promises to reveal everything that happened on the day Tuji died. Still reeling, Kaido demands to know who he really is. With a steady gaze, Kuji answers that he will explain everything, and drops the shocking revelation that the one who carried out the order to kill him was none other than his former partner, Hate. At the mention of Hate's name, Kaido's expression hardens with fury, but Kuji continues, explaining that the assassination order was top secret, and he leaked the intel so Kaido's brain could be recovered before the Great Will secured it. When Kaido demands to know about the other two, Kuji introduces them as members of Agros, a covert government unit, better known as Argos, tasked with annihilating the Great Will and responsible for transplanting Tuji's brain into Kaido's body. Tuji bristles with anger at the thought of being handled by the government, while Raoul bluntly says it was his duty and Reika calmly greets him, explaining that Tuji's preservation was solely because they needed his power. Struggling to process this, Kaido glares sharply and demands to know if they also knew Mariah was in danger. His stare is so cold that Reika falters, and Raoul quickly insists they had no idea, claiming neither of them were present at the time. As Kaido's head begins to throb, he grabs it and wonders if his ability to sense killing intent is a side effect of the brain transplant. But before anyone can respond, he suddenly collapses unconscious, leaving everyone in shock, while Kuji grows more intrigued by the mysterious power he mentioned. Meanwhile, within the Great Will organization, Hashima asks Izumi if Akitsuki has reported back, but Izumi explains there has been no contact, and that Akitsuki has even severed all communication, noting that while Akitsuki was always difficult, the 12 Divine Spears have freedom so long as they don't oppose Odin. When Hashima questions whether it's possible for one of the spears to be defeated, Izumi scoffs, saying only Gungar's ghost could pull that off, since no one else could match Akitsuki, though Ishima reminds him that Gunga is long dead and his body disposed of. Still, Izumi notes there are rumors Argos may have uncovered something, and both men agree that if there's indeed a spy in their ranks, they must act swiftly, first eliminating Argos before turning toward the seat of Fenrir. At the same time, Kaido finds himself back in the Mind Realm, recognizing it as the place he's been before, where Ko appears and explains that this is the space where their minds have merged. Tuji, now understanding Kaido's identity, asks if this strange place is his power, to which Kaido replies that he will truly be able to use it once he learns to trust his instincts. Tuji wakes up and immediately feels the situation is eerily similar to when he collapsed after fighting Akitsuki, only to awaken with Kaido's consciousness present. Sitting nearby, Kuji explains that they are in one of his hideouts connected to the parking garage and that Tuji had been unconscious for 1 hour and 50 minutes. He adds that during this time, he ran several tests and confirmed Tuji's neural connections are intact, but his brain activity operates far beyond normal levels, spiking even higher during combat, which likely explains his ability to sense killing intent. While noting that an expert's opinion would help, Kuji warns that this condition is extremely dangerous, already causing long comas, and if it continues unchecked, it will become fatal. Tuji slowly rises, gripping his knife and pointing it at Kuji, demanding to know if he let my be taken just to recruit him. Staying calm, Kuji denies any knowledge of it and asks if he would have rather died alongside her. But before things escalate, Raoul kicks the door open, ordering Tuji to put the knife down. With a serious tone, he mocks him for listening to a dangerous ex-member of the very organization that seeks to destroy the world. Kuji then explains that Argos believes there are 2 keys to defeating the organization: Gunga and a sacred treasure known as the Seed of Fenrir, which they are determined to protect. Hearing this, Tuji recalls Akitsuki once going after Yuzua for the same reason and asks what they expect of him. Raoul quickly needles him again, saying he finally sounds cooperative, but Tuji firmly declares that destroying the organization is something he has already decided to do, with or without them, to which Raoul agrees, noting that a shared goal makes him easier to trust. With that, Kuji reveals their plan to strike one of the organization's most secretive facilities, a research institute where Tuji himself once worked. Known only to a select few, this place is the birthplace of Avalon, the Forced Human Evolution Project, and also houses a team devoted to researching the Seed of Fenrir. If they can infiltrate it, they'll uncover everything about the treasure and possibly why Yuzua is being hunted. Tuji demands the full details of the operation, and when the day arrives, an aircraft soars above the hidden facility as Kuji explains that destroying or stealing the research will deal a devastating blow to the organization. With only minutes before infiltration, Raoul glances at Tuji and asks if he's scared, to which Tuji calmly replies that he feels the same as Raoul, though inwardly he knows the moment he's been waiting for has finally come. In the operations room, Kuji briefs the team. The facility is divided into 2 sections: an above-ground 20-floor complex and an underground compound that once trained assassins, but now focuses on creating mutant killers through genetic manipulation. Reika bitterly notes that it's nothing more than a factory that turns humans into monsters. Kuji explains that their primary target is the 3rd underground floor, where the most critical data, including information on the Seed of Fenrir, is stored. Raoul then outlines the mission: retrieve the data and, if possible, destroy the entire facility. For this, they will split into 2 teams, one to draw the attention of the security forces and the other to infiltrate the building. Although Avalon is a highly classified facility, its defenses are not as tight as a true military base, but infiltration remains difficult since the internal layout is mostly unknown. Tuji volunteers to lead the infiltration, but Raoul slyly remarks that this was the plan all along, implying he knows why Tuji has been kept alive, and grinning as he declares Tuji's life will now be used for the sake of world peace. He adds that he'll be accompanying him, forcing them to work together. With just 90 seconds left, Raoul and Reika issue final instructions. Raoul orders everyone to stay in position, while Reika directs 10 members to storm the rooftop, and another 10 to attack the main gate, their task being to create a loud distraction so Tuji and Raoul can slip inside. Tuji assures her they'll succeed, and Raoul explains they'll enter from the south side. As the aircraft's ramp opens, Raoul can barely see through the thick clouds, but Tuji calmly says he can clearly sense Avalon below. Just before the drop, Tuji turns to Raoul and declares that he is no longer Gungar, but Ko Fujiwara. With that, the mission begins as the team jumps from the plane. Tuji dives fast through the air, ignoring Raoul's warning that he's moving too quickly, focused only on the thought that this is the Great Wall Organization's assassin training facility, and a place where he'll uncover why Yuzua is being targeted. As they reach the parachute zone, everyone lands safely, but Raoul lashes out at Tuji, thinking he almost got himself killed, only to realize Tuji is used to pulling reckless stunts. Annoyed by Raoul's constant chatter, Tuji tells him to hide the parachute before anyone notices. They scout the area, and Raoul points out that everything is unfolding smoothly as Tuji planned, so infiltrating from the southern entrance should be easy. While Raoul prepares to open the shutter, an explosion erupts on the rooftop. Reika's signal that the diversion has begun, prompting her to urge them forward. As the shutter opens, Raoul lets Tuji lead, and the facility alarms blare with an announcement ordering security to the rooftop and main gate. Panic spreads among the researchers, confused about who would dare attack such a place. Taking advantage of the chaos, Tuji and Raoul slip inside the hallways, though Raoul notes it feels too quiet, likely because all security has been diverted. Suddenly, Tuji senses 4 enemies nearby, swiftly ambushes them, and knocks out the first with a brutal punch before dismantling the rest just as easily. Raoul is stunned at how quickly he eliminated them, realizing Tuji had been holding back when they fought earlier. Tuji tells him the stairs are ahead, and they press on, while elsewhere, Izumo watches their progress through the surveillance system, remarking that although only 2 people have infiltrated, they're strong enough to easily dispatch enhanced assassins. Meanwhile, Omega grins hungrily, remarking that the intruders look delicious, and asks Izumo if he'll be granted freedom like the others if he eliminates them. With a sly smile, Izumo agrees, reminding him that Odin's orders are to protect Avalon at all costs, and adds that if Omega proves himself here, he'll not only be officially recognized as a lance, but also earn a place among the 12 divine spears. Fired up, Omega feels thrilled. This is the first time he's been allowed to unleash his powers outside of an experiment, and he finally has permission to kill humans. Back inside the facility, Raoul urges Tuji to keep moving as enemies approach, but Tuji pauses, staring at their surroundings. Raoul grows impatient, but Tuji declares that this place was built to manufacture killers like him through cruel experiments. And here now, he will reject their twisted creed that the only way to change the world is by taking innocent lives.